Good day. It's wonderful to be here with you again and to offer just a few thoughts from God's Word. I pray that all of you are staying safe, that you're looking forward to a productive and God honoring day, that you feel God's presence, and that you've spent a bit of time in prayer or in the Word, or maybe this forms part of your devotional. It's just a pleasure to be here with you today. I wanted to read a very brief passage from the book of Acts, and that's Acts chapter 17, beginning in verse 22. And this is Paul in the Areopagus in Athens. And so Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found also an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.' What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands, as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God, in the hope that they may feel their way towards him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring." So that's a wonderful passage. It's Acts chapter 17, verses 22 to 28. What I love about this passage is that Paul demonstrates a real sensitivity to the culture of the people that he's speaking to. And in Athens, in the Areopagus, that was a place in the center of the city near the Parthenon, where men would gather to debate philosophy and to try to figure out the secrets of the universe. Socrates was there, Plato, Aristotle, all of the great Greek philosophers and debaters. And Paul is aware that the Greeks have this long tradition of philosophy, of reasoning about the universe and about people. And he speaks to them in a way that's designed to grab their attention and show that he understands what they're trying to do. Plato and Aristotle in particular were very sophisticated men, very sophisticated philosophers. They reasoned, I think this is Aristotle specifically, they reasoned that there must be a first cause behind the whole creation of the universe. They reasoned that everything is set in motion by something. So at some point there must have been an unmoved mover that set the whole universe into motion. And Paul acknowledges, but the important thing is that these men kind of viewed it as like the Big Bang, like just something that just happened. That wasn't a person, it wasn't a being that did it. It was just something that happened. And Paul acknowledges that, or that the Greeks viewed the prime cause or the first cause as something really unknown, something that we couldn't really get our hands around. And so Paul acknowledges that right up front. He says, "Look, I know you're religious. I know that you're seeking after God because of these altars that have the inscription, 'To the unknown God.' But I'm here to tell you that God can be known, that God is known." Um, and he proclaims the gospel to them. And he's very specific, and he says to them that the God that I am preaching, the God that's embodied in Jesus Christ, made the entire earth. He doesn't live in temples made by man, and he's not served by human hands. And again, that's appealing to the sense of the Greeks, that they were, despite some of their mythology, they were sophisticated enough to know that God's not a God that kind of lives in a statue or in a temple. Paul's affirming that. And he says, yeah, God does not live in temples. He's not served by human hands. He doesn't need anything from us, but he gives to everybody and all mankind life and breath and everything. Then he says something important as well. the Greeks viewed themselves as very much superior to the rest of the world. It was the nation that had given everyone great philosophers and great conquerors like Alexander the Great. They were particularly at the time would have been very snobbish towards the Romans who had conquered them. And the Romans used Greek tutors and teachers for their children, and Greek was supposed to be the educated person's language. And so they really viewed themselves as better than everybody else. But Paul reminds them, like, God, this God that I'm preaching to you, he created everyone on earth. He created all of the nations of mankind, and he encourages every nation to seek him. And so, this was a very timely reminder to the Greeks too, that don't get too, don't think you're so special, because really there's every nation in the world was made by God, and that he wants them to share in his revelation. And he even quotes some of the Greek poets when he says, "In him we live and move and have your being," as even some of your own poets have said. So this is a wonderful lesson for us on how we approach. Maybe it's people from a different culture. This is a very multicultural area. Maybe it's people that have a particularly very strong view of God. You need to be understanding of their positions and their beliefs. You shouldn't just kind of live and let live or tolerate it, but you need to address them in a way that makes sense to them. So if you're speaking to a Muslim person, do your homework and understand where they would be coming from, or a Hindu person, or an atheist. You don't have to agree with that, obviously, because in many ways it's wrong, but you have to approach the gospel with them in a way that's going to make sense to them. And you can't water down the gospel or change it, of course, but you need to be sensitive to their culture. And so that's just something that always strikes me when I read this passage, about how sensitive and intelligent Paul is, and how wise he is, and how he presents it to the men of Athens. So that's my devotional for today. I just wish you a wonderful week. I pray that as things open up, you're able to get back to church in person, you're able to meet people again, and I just pray that you stay safe and that you continue to hold on. The light's coming near to the end of the tunnel, and so I just pray that God will bless you this week. Thank you, and God bless.